The newsroom was noisy that morning, as always. The clatter of keyboards mixed with the ringing of telephones, the hum of printers, and the low murmur of conversations. Papers rustled as reporters passed notes, and the smell of burnt coffee hung in the air. Leila sat at her desk, her dark curls pulled back in a loose bun, her eyes fixed on the blinking cursor on her screen. She was finishing up a short piece about a local transport issue, the kind of story that mattered to readers but rarely made headlines outside the city. The editor's voice rose above the din. "All right, listen up, everyone. We've got assignments for the week." Instantly, the noise dropped a little. Reporters leaned back in their chairs or swiveled around, notebooks in hand. Leila grabbed hers automatically, clicking her pen, ready to jot down notes. The editor, a tall woman named Claire with sharp features and hair cropped close to her head, began reading from a sheet. Local council meetings, housing updates, education reforms. She assigned stories one by one, her tone brisk, efficient. Then her eyes lifted, scanning the room. "Johnson," she said. Leila straightened. "Yes." "You're on Vogel." For a moment, Leila wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. "Sorry, did you say Vogel?" "Yes, Markus Vogel." Claire adjusted her glasses. "German politician, climate summit. He's in Auckland for 5 days. Public events, a keynote speech, several interviews. I want coverage for the paper. Good coverage. And you're the one to do it." Leila's pen hovered over her notebook. She quickly wrote his name in neat block letters, Markus Vogel, underlined twice. A stir went through the room. Everyone knew the name. Vogel was a rising figure in European politics, known for his bold speeches on climate action and international cooperation. His visit to New Zealand was more than symbolic, it was a signal. Leila kept her expression calm, professional, but inside she felt a spark of something sharp and bright. This was big. Bigger than transport complaints, bigger than council meetings. If she did this well, it could put her work on a new level. Claire continued assigning stories, but Leila barely heard the rest. Her mind was already racing, planning questions, angles, approaches. She flipped to a fresh page and began sketching ideas. Climate leadership, international cooperation, NZ role, future generations. When the meeting ended, chairs scraped and conversations started up again. David appeared at her desk, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He set one down in front of her without asking. "Well, well," he said, his grin wide. "Our very own Leila Johnson covering the great Markus Vogel. Congratulations, superstar." Leila rolled her eyes, though she couldn't help smiling. "It's just work, David." "Just work." He leaned against her desk, sipping his coffee. "Come on, Leila, this is a career story. Vogel is a big name, you'll be in the spotlight. You might even get your name on the front page." Leila shrugged, trying to keep her voice even. "That's the goal, but it's still work. A story is a story." David tilted his head. "Sure, just don't fall for the politician's smile. They're trained to make people feel special, even journalists." Leila snapped her notebook shut. "I don't fall easily, you know that." He chuckled. Yes, you're all logic, no nonsense, but even logic has its weak spots." Leila smirked. "And yours is coffee and gossip." David raised his cup in salute. "Exactly. Now go make history, Johnson." The rest of the day, Leila worked with quiet intensity. She researched Markus Vogel's background, pulling up old interviews, speeches, and articles. She scribbled notes on his rise in German politics, his push for climate action, his reputation as both a visionary and a pragmatist. She noted his education, his family history, even small details like his love of hiking and his fluent English. Her notebook filled quickly, lines of ink stacking one over the other. She drew arrows between ideas, highlighted key quotes, circled themes she wanted to explore. By the time the office lights dimmed and most of her colleagues had gone home, her pages were a map of Markus Vogel's world. But when she turned one page too far, she froze. On the margin of an earlier note, she saw the name she had written days ago, almost without meaning to: Alejandro. Her eyes lingered on it for a second. A simple word, just a name, but it brought back the sound of a guitar, the warmth of a restaurant, the question. Do the words make you happy? She closed the notebook quickly, pressing her palm against the cover as if to seal it shut. That name didn't belong here. This was work. Markus Vogel was the story, nothing else. She packed up her things, straightened her shoulders, and walked out into the Auckland evening. The air was cool, the city lights reflecting in the harbor. Tomorrow she would meet Markus Vogel face to face. And she promised herself as she walked toward the ferry that she would stay focused. Professional, detached, just a journalist doing her job. The next morning, Leila stood in the lobby of a tall hotel in central Auckland. The building rose like a sheet of glass above the harbor, its windows reflecting the pale blue of the late spring sky. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh flowers. People moved through the lobby in quiet streams, assistants with folders under their arms, security guards with careful eyes, reporters checking their recorders. Leila adjusted her press badge and tightened her grip on her notebook. Her shoes clicked against the marble floor as an assistant led her down a carpeted hallway. "Mr. Vogel will see you now," the assistant said, opening a door to a suite with wide windows. The room was filled with natural light. Beyond the glass, the harbor stretched in a soft glitter of waves and boats. Markus Vogel stood near the window, his hands folded neatly behind his back, posture straight but not stiff. He turned when she entered. "Ms. Johnson," he said in a voice that carried calm authority. "It is good to meet you. I remember seeing you at the hall." Leila blinked. You noticed me." Markus smiled faintly. "A journalist with sharp eyes always stands out. Please sit." She sat, balancing her notebook on her knees, pen ready. For the next half hour, she asked questions carefully chosen the night before. About climate action, about cooperation between Europe and the Pacific, about responsibility toward future generations. Markus's answers came like practiced notes in a symphony. His voice was steady, his sentences precise, his gaze unwavering. He spoke of courage, sacrifice, and the urgency of protecting the planet. Leila's hand moved quickly, ink flowing across the page. Yet now and then, she noticed something beyond the polish. A small pause before a difficult word, a flicker of thought in his eyes. He wasn't just reciting lines, there was conviction behind them. At the end, she closed her notebook with quiet satisfaction. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Vogel." "My pleasure." He leaned back slightly, studying her. "You ask good questions, direct, honest. Not every journalist does that." Leila resisted the warmth that crept into her chest. "It's my job." As she stood, Markus added, "There is a reception tomorrow evening. Leaders, activists, local officials. Perhaps you would like to attend. It might give your article more color." Leila hesitated, pen resting against the notebook cover. Then she nodded. "Yes, thank you." The reception hall near the waterfront shimmered with lights the following night. Tall glass windows looked out over the water, where ferries moved like slow lanterns across the harbor. Inside, guests in tailored suits and elegant dresses clustered in small groups, glasses of wine catching the glow of chandeliers. A string quartet played softly from a corner. Leila paused at the entrance, her notebook tucked under her arm. She wore a simple navy dress, not extravagant but neat. As she stepped inside, her shoes clicked against the polished floor, the sound swallowed quickly by the low hum of conversation. Markus was at the center of it all. He stood with diplomats and business leaders, his presence magnetic, his gestures smooth. When his eyes found hers across the room, they warmed instantly. He excused himself and walked toward her. "Ms. Johnson," he said, taking her hand briefly, "I'm glad you came." Leila gave a polite smile. "Thank you for the invitation. It's an impressive event." He led her through the room, introducing her to people she had only ever read about in the news. Ministers, scientists, activists. She shook hands, smiled, and noted names discreetly. Each exchange was another piece for her article, another angle to build. Yet as the evening stretched on, Leila felt something she hadn't expected, a weight pressing on her chest. The speeches, the polished laughter, the endless words about future generations, it all rang with importance but also with distance. The language was big, abstract, sweeping. She found herself remembering the sound of a guitar in a small restaurant, a melody simple and human, played not for headlines but for joy. She shook the thought away. This was work. This was where the real story was. Needing air, she slipped out onto the balcony. The harbor stretched before her, the city lights reflected on the water like a scatter of stars. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint smell of salt and seaweed. She leaned on the railing, notebook against her chest, breathing deeply. Behind her, a quiet voice said, "Do you always work, even at parties?" She turned. Markus stood there, glass of water in hand. Leila let out a small laugh. "Yes, I suppose I do. Old habits." He moved closer, resting his forearm lightly against the railing. "It's not a bad habit. It shows focus. But sometimes focus hides the person behind it. Tell me, Leila. What do you want? Not as a journalist, as yourself." The question caught her unprepared. Her mind searched for a safe answer. She looked down at her notebook. "I want the truth," she said finally. Markus studied her. The truth is not always found in documents or speeches. Sometimes it's found in people, in moments like this. His gaze held hers. Steady, strong, Leila felt her heartbeat quicken. She pulled her eyes away, forcing a small smile. "Thank you, Mr. Vogel, but this is still an interview in the end." He tilted his head, amusement flickering across his face. "Perhaps, or perhaps not." For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of the city below. Then Markus returned to the hall, leaving Leila staring at the reflection of lights on the water. Later that night, back in her apartment, Leila sat at her desk with the notebook open before her. The pages brimmed with Markus's words, strong sentences about unity, sacrifice, the future. She copied a few into her laptop, arranging them into paragraphs. Yet something felt off. She read the words again, her eyes tracing the lines carefully. They were powerful, yes, but something about them left her restless. Unbidden, another voice whispered in her memory, a quieter voice asking softly, "Do the words make you happy?" Leila frowned, pressing the pen to the page. She wrote in the margin, "Vogel's speeches, power, responsibility." Then, almost against her will, she turned to a blank page and wrote another line. "Alejandro, music, children, heart." She stared at the two entries. She told herself they were nothing more than possible articles, two angles for future stories. That was all. But even as she closed the notebook, pushed it aside, and turned off the lamp, she knew the comparison had already taken root inside her. Markus Vogel offered a vision of the world. Alejandro Tours had offered a song. And Leila Johnson, the woman who never fell easily, was beginning to feel the tug of both.